The sun had just set over the dense, shadowy expanse of Hoya Baciu Forest, known as the most haunted forest in the world. In the village nestled at its edge, a young boy named Aryan, no older than 10, went missing. His mother, Kavita, sobbed inconsolably, clutching his favorite toy truck. Villagers whispered about the forest's curse, the stories of people disappearing, of shadows that moved without light, and the eerie whispers that lured wanderers deep into its grasp. Kavita, her heart heavy with dread, pleaded with the villagers to help search for Aryan. But fear gripped the crowd. No one dared enter the forest after dark. "The whispers will take him," an old man muttered. Despite their warnings, Kavita lit a lantern, tied her scarf tightly, and walked into the ominous woods alone, desperation outpacing her terror. The forest was eerily silent, save for the crunch of Kavita's footsteps on the dead leaves. The towering trees seemed to lean in, their twisted branches reaching like skeletal hands. As she moved deeper, faint whispers began to echo around her. Soft, unintelligible, and eerily childlike. "Kavita, help me," came a faint cry, unmistakably Aryan's voice. Her heart leaped. She called out, but the whispers multiplied, overlapping and growing louder. Shadows danced in the dim light of her lantern, and her pulse quickened as she realized they didn't belong to her. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw a shape, a pale, featureless figure darting between the trees. It moved unnaturally like a puppet on invisible strings. Kavita froze, her lantern flickering, as the figure stopped and turned toward her. Though it had no eyes, she felt its gaze pierce her soul. Tears streamed down Kavita's face as she stumbled upon a clearing bathed in an unearthly glow. There in the center lay Aryan's toy truck. It was clean and polished, as if it had been placed deliberately. She dropped to her knees, clutching the toy to her chest, and screamed his name into the void. "Kavita!" The whisper came again, louder this time. She turned to see Aryan standing under a tree. Relief flooded her as she ran to him, but her joy turned to horror when she noticed his pale skin and lifeless eyes. "Mommy, I'm cold," Aryan said in a hollow voice, reaching out to her. Kavita's instincts told her to run, but she couldn't leave her son. She pulled him into her arms, but as she did, his body began to dissolve into black mist, swirling around her. The whispers grew deafening, mocking her cries as the mist seeped into the ground, leaving her alone and broken. Shaking with grief, Kavita noticed the ground beneath her feet began to shift. A circle of ancient symbols, glowing faintly red, emerged in the soil. The whispers faded, replaced by a deep, guttural growl. Suddenly, the ground split open, and an enormous, gnarled tree root shot out, coiling around her legs. From the darkness below, a monstrous figure emerged, a grotesque amalgamation of wood and shadow, with hollow eyes that burned with crimson light. "You've trespassed where the living are forbidden," it bellowed, its voice a mix of cracking wood and distant thunder. Kavita screamed as it loomed closer, but then it paused, tilting its head as if listening to something unseen. "You are not the first," it whispered, almost amused. With a sudden jerk, it released her, sending her tumbling to the ground. "Go, before the forest claims your soul too." As Kavita stumbled back toward the village, she noticed something she hadn't before. Carvings etched into the trees. Each one depicted a face, some crying, others screaming, all frozen in agony. One of them was unmistakably Aryan's. When she reached the edge of the forest, she found a group of villagers waiting, their faces pale with fear. An old woman approached her, clutching a tattered book. "You saw it, didn't you?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What is it? What did it do to my son?" Kavita demanded. The old woman opened the book, revealing drawings of the same monstrous figure Kavita had encountered. "It's the guardian of the whispering forest, a spirit that feeds on sorrow. But there's more. The children it takes aren't gone. They become part of the forest, their spirits trapped until the curse is broken." Kavita looked back at the forest, her resolve hardening. "Then I'll break the curse, no matter what it takes." The villagers exchanged worried glances. "No one has ever returned from trying," the old woman warned. Kavita's gaze didn't waver. "Then I'll be the first." The dim lantern light flickered in Kavita's trembling hands as she sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the toy truck. It was Arian's favorite, now smeared with mud from the forest clearing. Her mind replayed his hollow voice. "Mommy, I'm cold," over and over. Each time it felt like a knife twisting deeper into her heart. The villagers had warned her not to return to the forest, but how could she leave Arian's soul trapped? The forest had taken her child, but it hadn't broken her spirit. The book the old woman had given her lay open beside her, revealing cryptic drawings of symbols and rituals. Kavita whispered to herself, "I will bring you back, Arian. I promise," determined. Kavita wrapped herself in a thick shawl and carried the lantern, the book, and a bag of salt, as instructed in the text. She ventured into the forest once more, her every step accompanied by the eerie sound of the wind whispering through the trees. The book described a sacred ritual site deep within the forest, where the curse had first begun. As she walked, the whispers returned, louder and more taunting. She felt eyes watching her, though no one was there. Suddenly, the path beneath her feet vanished, and she found herself surrounded by gnarled trees that seemed to close in on her. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a pale, faceless man with elongated limbs. "Kavita!" it rasped, its voice distorted like a broken record. She froze, clutching the bag of salt tightly. The figure lunged at her, but she instinctively threw a handful of salt into its path. It let out a bone-chilling scream and dissolved into black mist, leaving behind an unbearable silence. Tears streamed down Kavita's face as she stumbled into another clearing. In the center stood a massive ancient tree with a hollow trunk. Around its base were small carvings, each depicting a face, some young, some old, all frozen in expressions of terror. Her breath caught as she spotted Arian's face among them. She fell to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. "Arian, I'm here, baby! Please, come back to me!" Her cries echoed through the forest, but no answer came. In her desperation, she remembered the ritual. The book had said that the tree was the heart of the curse, and destroying it would free the souls trapped within. But as she read further, a chilling truth emerged. The ritual required a sacrifice. To break the curse, someone had to willingly offer their life to the guardian. The ground beneath the tree began to quake, and the guardian emerged once more, a towering, shadowy figure with glowing red eyes. Its voice was a guttural roar. "You seek to break the curse, but are you willing to pay the price?" Kavita stood, her hands trembling, but her resolve unshaken. "Take me," she said, her voice steady despite the fear gripping her heart. The guardian let out a deep, echoing laugh. "It is not that simple. A life for a life is the rule. But a mother's love, that is powerful magic." Before she could respond, the tree's hollow began to glow, and from it emerged Arian, not as the lifeless boy she had seen earlier, but vibrant and alive. He ran to her, and she embraced him, her tears soaking his small shoulders. "Mommy, I'm scared," he whispered. The guardian loomed over them. "Choose wisely, mortal. You may take him, but the forest will claim you in his place. Or leave now, and he will remain safe in this limbo, untouched by time." Kavita's heart raced as she clutched Arian tightly. Could she leave him in this cursed place forever, untouched but alone? Or could she face the darkness and give her life for his freedom? She looked into Arian's tear-filled eyes and her decision became clear. "Let him go," she said softly. The guardian raised its hand, and Arian vanished into thin air. Kavita gasped, but before she could scream, the guardian spoke. "He is safe now, beyond this realm, but your journey has just begun." The forest began to transform, the faces on the tree melting away, replaced by fresh symbols glowing ominously. The guardian faded into the shadows, leaving her alone in the clearing. Kavita's lantern flickered and went out, plunging her into darkness. From the distance came a chilling voice, whispering, "The price has been paid, but the curse is far from over." The episode ends with the screen fading to black, the sound of whispers and Kavita's heavy breathing growing louder. A message flashes. The forest was alive with whispers, louder than ever, as Kavita stood in the clearing under the gnarled ancient tree. The ground trembled beneath her feet, and the air carried the scent of decay. The guardian reappeared, its shadowy form towering over her. "The time has come," it boomed, "to pay the ultimate price." Kavita's heart ached, not from fear, but from the overwhelming weight of her choice. She had sent Arian to safety, but now she stood alone, ready to face the curse that had plagued the forest for centuries. "Take me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "But let this forest be free. Let no other soul suffer." The guardian's red eyes glowed brighter. It extended a hand toward her, its fingers made of shadow and smoke. As it touched her forehead, a cold, searing pain surged through her body, and she screamed. The whispers rose to a deafening crescendo, and the world around her began to blur. As Kavita's vision faded, the whispers suddenly stopped. A profound silence blanketed the forest, and for a moment, time seemed to freeze. Then a soft golden light began to emanate from the ancient tree, its hollow filling with warmth and radiance. Kavita's body hovered in midair, surrounded by the golden light. The guardian's shadowy form began to dissipate, its voice echoing in the wind. "You have shown selflessness beyond measure. The curse is broken, but the forest will remember your sacrifice." The carvings on the tree dissolved, and from its bark emerged countless spirits, children, men, women, all who had been trapped for generations. They floated into the sky, their faces serene, their burdens lifted. The forest, once dark and menacing, transformed before Kavita's eyes. The gnarled trees turned lush and green, flowers bloomed where death once reigned, and the oppressive mist lifted, revealing a brilliant sunrise. As Kavita's body was gently lowered to the forest floor, she felt an overwhelming sense of peace. She looked down at herself, expecting to see her life slipping away. But instead, she saw a faint golden glow surrounding her. She was alive. From the shadows emerged Arian, his small frame running toward her. "Mommy!" he cried, his voice filled with joy. She embraced him tightly, tears streaming down her face. "You're safe, my love. You're safe." A soft, melodic voice spoke from the air around her. It was the spirit of the forest itself. "Your love and courage have not only freed the trapped souls, but healed the land. Go now and live in peace. But remember, the forest will always need protectors like you." As Kavita and Arian prepared to leave, they turned back one last time to see the tree. Where the guardian had once stood, a new figure emerged. A beautiful, ethereal woman with glowing green eyes adorned in vines and flowers. She smiled at Kavita and spoke, her voice soft yet commanding. "I was the first soul claimed by the curse. For centuries, I became its keeper, bound to its darkness. But your sacrifice has set me free. I will now guard this forest, ensuring no harm befalls it again." The woman raised her hand, and a golden barrier shimmered around the forest's edge. "No evil shall enter here, and those who come with pure hearts will find solace and guidance." Kavita and Arian walked hand in hand out of the forest, the golden barrier closing behind them. The villagers gathered at the edge, their faces a mix of awe and disbelief. The once cursed forest now radiated life and beauty, a sanctuary of nature. Kavita turned to the villagers and said, "This forest was not just cursed by dark forces, but by our neglect and greed. We must respect the land and its spirits. Only then can we live in harmony." The villagers nodded, vowing to protect the forest and honor its new guardian. Years later, Kavita and Arian returned to the edge of the forest, now a thriving haven for wildlife. They placed flowers near its entrance, a gesture of gratitude. Kavita whispered, "Thank you for giving us another chance." As they walked away, the forest seemed to whisper back, a gentle breeze carrying the message, "Protect the world, and it will protect you." The story ends with a serene shot of the forest, now glowing under a golden sunset, a symbol of redemption, love, and the power of selflessness.